Back when the circus wasn't all clowns and animals, the real money came from the sideshows, or also called the freak shows, grim little corners packed with shock, stares, and raw discomfort. This wasn't entertainment the way we think of it now. It was a parade of people whose bodies didn't fit the world's concept of normal. Some were born with conditions no one could explain, others were exaggerated, or even surgically altered to seem more marketable. So, join us on this journey as we reveal the 15 circus freaks you won't believe are real. Number 15. The Bearded Lady. Josephine Bois de Chêne was born in Switzerland in 1827 and grew her first beard by age 8. She was diagnosed with hypertrichosis, but she carried it with quiet grace. When P.T. Barnum discovered her, he rebranded her Josephine Clofulia, dressing her in fine gowns and jewels. Her appearance fascinated audiences. Some whispered she was a man in disguise, others swore she was genuine. Barnum thrived on that doubt. In 1853, to stir up attention, he staged a fake lawsuit, hiring a man named William Charr to accuse him of fraud. The case went to court, where doctors examined Josephine and confirmed the truth. She was a woman. Her husband and father testified proudly. The story exploded in the papers, sending crowds flooding into Barnum's American Museum. Josephine's poise outlasted the scandal. She didn't need controversy to prove her worth. Long before fame turned exploitative, she had already owned her story, a woman whose beauty and defiance refused to fit anyone's expectations. Number 14. Count Philippe Nicole. Philippe Nicole was born in Montreal in 1881 and barely hit 3 feet tall, but he made up for it in presence. At 12, he joined the infamous Ringling Brothers and quickly became a crowd favorite. By 15, he was already a seasoned performer. He later met Rose Dufresne, a fellow little person, and in 1913, they married and built something no other act had, the Midget Palace. Located in Montreal, the entire home, every doorknob, chair, and step, was scaled to their size. They weren't background acts anymore. They were royalty, the Count and Countess Nicole. But like every dynasty, theirs had shadows. Their son, Philippe Jr., also a little person, landed in headlines in 1951, not for performance, but for robbing a tobacco shop. Still, the palace stayed open, drawing curious tourists until 1990. Nicole died in 1940, but his legacy stood a little taller than his tiny frame. He didn't just make a life, he built a world that fit him. Number 13. The Human Skeleton. Isaac W. Sprague was born in East Bridgewater, a healthy, lively child who loved to swim. Then, at 12, his body began wasting away for reasons no doctor could explain or understand. Despite eating normally, his weight plummeted, later diagnosed as progressive muscular atrophy. Too weak for his father's cobbler trade, Isaac turned to performance. P.T. Barnum hired him as the Human Skeleton, paying him $80 a week, an incredible salary at the time. His job was simple: stand before the crowd and exist. Yet Isaac never stopped trying to sustain himself, always carrying a can of milk for strength. He married, had children, and kept touring for years. By 44, he weighed just 43 pounds. At 46, he died, having lived longer than anyone expected. Isaac's life wasn't about freakishness. It was endurance. He faced a world that gawked at him and gave it quiet persistence instead. Behind every poster was a man who refused to vanish, no matter how fragile he seemed. And he was just one of the many skeleton guys. Number 12. Joan Wisnet. She was born without arms, and from the beginning she made it clear she didn't need anyone's sympathy. Her mom turned down every offer from sideshow scouts with 5 firm words. She's not for sale. Joan figured things out for herself. She learned to write, cook, and even play guitar using only her feet. She'd rest the instrument on her lap and play clear, steady chords with her toes. When she performed at Ripley's events and state fairs, it wasn't as a sideshow act, it was as a real musician. One boy laughed during a set, so she smiled and kept playing. Joan once said, "People expect tears. I give them a song audiences who came out of curiosity left in silence, not pity." Joan died in 1998 on her own terms, just as she'd lived. She didn't adjust to the world's expectations. She built her own space in it and stayed exactly who she was, all the way through. Number 11. The Joined Performers. Lucio and Simplicio Godino were born physically connected in 1908 in the Philippines. As children, they were shipped to the United States and placed on display at Coney Island. That ended when the New York Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children stepped in. Since no family came forward, they were adopted by the Philippine ambassador and given a proper education. They learned music, studied stage performance, and eventually formed their own act. In 1929, they married identical twin sis and toured the country with a vaudeville show built around humor, music, and presence, not pity. 7 years later, Lucio died of pneumonia. Doctors performed an emergency separation, which technically succeeded, but Simplicio passed shortly after from complications. Their entire lives had been spent moving together, learning how to keep rhythm as one. They fought to be seen as individuals in a world that refused to separate their identities. Though they died apart, they're still remembered together for what they made of it. Number 10. Willie Popeye Ingram. Willie Ingram was only 4 when he realized he could do something no one else could. He finds he can push his eyes outward until they nearly leave their sockets. It hurt, but it also drew stares he could never escape. Growing up in Decatur in the 1930s, he learned that if the world wouldn't look away, he might as well stand in the light. He joined Walter L. Wanis and Sons' traveling sideshow, performing across America with that strange, haunting gift. Crowds gasped, flinched, and sometimes laughed, but Willie didn't break. He appeared in Ripley's Believe It or Not, made his way into tabloid oddities, and even landed a role in the 1974 cult horror film, The Freak Maker. To audiences, he was the man with the eyes. To himself, he was just someone trying to turn discomfort into purpose. He never asked for the spotlight. It found him. And when it did, he faced it head-on, eyes wide open, never blinking. He was just as unique as his talent. Number 9. Joseph Merrick. Joseph was born in Leicester in 1862. His childhood seemed normal until age 5, when his body began to change. Tumors, thickened skin, and bone deformities twisted his frame until even walking became painful. Unable to find work, he joined a sideshow in 1884 as the Elephant Man. Unlike many in his position, Merrick was treated decently and managed to save money. During a London exhibition, a physician named Frederick Trevis took an interest in his condition and arranged for him to live at the London hospital, away from public display. Later research suggested Merrick likely had Proteus syndrome, not elephantiasis as once believed. Despite his physical challenges, he maintained an intelligent, gentle personality and loved reading poetry. In 1890, at 27, he died in his sleep, likely from suffocation caused by the weight of his head. Merrick's story remains a quiet reminder of how humanity can survive inside a life built from pain. Number 8. Violeta. Violeta was born with tetra amelia syndrome, which is a condition where all 4 limbs are absent. From a young age, she learned to manage life on her own. She could comb her hair, thread needles, and handle tasks many assumed impossible without arms or legs. Her condition didn't come with other health issues, and she was known to be incredibly alert and perceptive. In the sideshow world, she performed under the name the beautiful armless and legless Venus, which blurred the line between spectacle and admiration. Medical professionals often pointed out how well-proportioned her torso was, which added to the public's fascination. Her shows usually ended with her being carried past the audience. Some people reached out to touch her, occasionally overstepping. When they did, she responded firmly, always keeping control of the moment. Voleta never leaned on pity to hold attention. Her presence challenged assumptions, and what stayed with people was not her condition, but the way she handled it. Number 7. The Lapland giantess. Christina Larsdotter, often called the Lapland giantess, was born in 1829 in northern Sweden. By the time she turned 18, she stood just under 2 meters tall, extraordinary for any time, but especially then. Her height quickly attracted attention. She met King Carl XIV Johan in 1837 and began touring across Europe soon after, appearing in Denmark, Germany, and England. There were rumors questioning her gender, which the Karolinska Institute publicly dismissed after medical examination. Christina took full control of her image. She used her earnings to clear her family's debts, purchase property, and support herself independently. She spoke multiple languages and negotiated her own contracts. In 1854, a severe snowstorm left her badly injured. Complications followed, and she died at age 35. After her death, scientists exhumed her remains, hoping to study what had fascinated so many in life. But Christina's story was never about science. She was a woman who saw what made her different and turned it into power. Number 6. The Wild Men of Borneo. Barnum always found new ways to reinvent spectacle. When he met brothers Hiram and Barney Davis, both under 4 feet tall and weighing just 45 pounds, he saw an opportunity. Despite their size, they possessed astonishing strength, lifting over 300 pounds with ease. Barnum gave them new names, Wayno and Plutonor, branding them as the Wild Men of Borneo. He invented a backstory claiming they'd been captured from the jungles of Borneo, selling the myth to packed crowds who believed they were witnessing savages. The brothers, both mentally disabled, didn't know how deep the lie ran, but they became stars nonetheless. Performing at Barnum's New American Museum, they earned more than $200,000, millions in today's money. As they aged, blindness crept in, but they were cared for until their 90s. Even after their deaths, newspapers continued the fiction, writing their obituaries as though they truly were jungle-born wild men. Their story remains both tragic and extraordinary, a fortune built on a fable. Number 5. Henry Crip Hurd. Henry Crip Hurd didn't survive tragedy, he outran it. As a teenager, he tore up dance floors on the black vaudeville circuit. Then came the accident, a train in Memphis, a split-second mistake, and suddenly he had one arm and one leg. That would have ended most lives. Henry started over, limping at first, then moving smoothly until rhythm became second nature again. He danced with what he had and left audiences stunned. His style was sharp, percussive, unforgettable. In 1948, he starred in Boarding House Blues, the only act brave enough to open the show. No one dared follow. Offstage, the world didn't go easier. He was mugged in 1959. A year later, a stroke and a fall shattered several bones. Still, he got back up, still danced, still fought. He retired in 1971. When he died in 1991, few outside that world remembered him. But in every stage, creak, and spotlight flicker, Henry left behind something undeniable: defiance in motion. Number 4. The Chinese Giant. Chang Yu Sing stood over 8 feet tall and weighed roughly 364 pounds, a mountain of a man. P.T. Barnum adored the contrast and dressed him in long Chinese robes to exaggerate his height even more, advertising him as 9 feet tall. His very existence intrigued audiences. After all, a Chinese giant contradicted every Western stereotype about Asian size. Chang played along, using humor and charm to engage the crowd. He knew what they came to see, and he gave it to them, always with control. Records of his time with Barnum are scarce, suggesting he worked under a short-term contract before returning to a quieter life. For a few brief years, though, his towering frame stood as one of Barnum's proudest attractions, a living paradox in silk and shadow. Chang didn't need tricks or backstories. He was simply himself. And when the crowds dispersed, he stepped away from the stage, taking his true life back with him. Number 3. Prince Randian. Prince Randian was born in British Guiana. His real name is lost to time. He had tetra amelia syndrome, born without arms or legs, but carried more presence than most men ever could. At 18, he moved to the United States to perform for Barnum. His act was quite brilliant, rolling, striking, and smoking his own cigarette using only his lips. He could even write with his mouth. Sometimes he was costumed as a snake, caterpillar, or potato. Mocking, yes, but audiences stared in awe. In 1932, he appeared in the cult film Freaks, calmly performing his cigarette trick, a scene now iconic. Off-stage, he was funny, charming, and rumored to be a favorite among women. He married, had 5 children, and lived a full life inside a world that rarely offered dignity. After one of his performances in New York City, he suffered a fatal heart attack at 63. Randian left no last words, just a lifetime of defiance, performed one breath at a time. Number 2. Millie and Christine McCoy. Millie and Christine were born in 1852, conjoined at the lower spine and sharing vital organs. Their mother was enslaved. Not long after their birth, they were sold for $6,000 to James P. Smith, who later purchased their entire family to keep them together. Smith recognized their potential beyond exploitation. He ensured they were educated, taught them languages and music, and introduced them to the stage as the Two-Headed Nightingale. Their voices blended seamlessly, each singing distinct harmonies that audiences couldn't forget. They toured the US and Europe for decades, including under P.T. Barnum's management. Despite earning substantial money, a fire destroyed their home and savings. Still, they returned to the stage, performing into their 60s. Both sisters died in 1912 from tuberculosis, only hours apart. Their lives were shaped by ownership, fame, and survival, but through it all, they remained performers. Millie and Christine never chose their beginning, but they shaped everything that came after. Number 1. Little Queen Mab. Nellie Keeler entered the world in 1875, weighing just 11 ounces, light enough to cradle in a teacup. By 3, she stood a little over 2 feet tall, with eyes too sharp to ignore. Barnum wasted no time. He dubbed her Little Queen Mab and paired her with the towering Middlebush giant in a touring act designed for contrast. But Nellie wasn't a punchline. Her movements were quiet, graceful, an elegance rare even in adult performers. She toured for years, drawing crowds more for her poise than her size. But the circus couldn't keep her. Around age 12, she began to grow, eventually reaching 5 feet. The spotlight faded and her health followed. By 16, she was mostly bedridden. At 28, tuberculosis took her life. Her family buried her in a locked vault to protect her remains from grave robbers. Nellie's career was brief, but it mattered. For a time, she wasn't just a spectacle. She was unforgettable, and that's what stayed. If you found this video interesting, be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you very soon.